Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Miami-Dade College's Wolfson campus here in our magnificent city of Miami. The Wolfson campus serves 30,000 students, and there are 1,700 full and part-time employees who come downtown to serve at Wolfson campus week in and week out. There's always something interesting happening here at Wolfson campus, including our Lunchtime Jazz at Wolfson concert series. Those are internationally renowned jazz artists. The concerts are free and open to the public, and they certainly give you a welcome respite from this hectic downtown environment. So come in, enjoy this wonderful auditorium, some international jazz artists, and that begins next month. Miami-Dade College is known as Democracy's College. It is also the community's college, and so we see it as part of our mission to convene the public, to convene the community for important conversations that expand knowledge, understanding, cooperation, and civility. Towards that end, we are very proud of our productive relationship with the World Affairs Council Miami, wherein together we offer gatherings that co-create the public sphere for learning and dialogue. Today, we are most honored to host Her Excellency Milena Mayorga, Ambassador of El Salvador to the United States. We do invite you and hope you return 2 more times next month when we'll host Mr. Kevin Marino Cabrera, U.S. Ambassador to Panama on October 23rd, and also join us on October 30th for Ms. Lina Kaisa Mikola, Ambassador of Finland to the U.S. on October 30th. And October is also our first Jazz at Wolfson, so many opportunities for you to come back to Wolfson campus, and we'd love to see you here. And now, please join me in welcoming the president and founder of the World Affairs Council, Aaron Rosen.
Thank you, Dr. Gonzalez. Good morning, everybody. Thank you. On behalf of the World Affairs Council of Miami, it is my pleasure to welcome you to today's edition of the Mark Samuelian Distinguished Speaker Series, featuring Her Excellency, Ambassador Milena Mayorga of El Salvador to the United States. My name is Aaron Rosen. I have the pleasure to serve as President and Founder of the World Affairs Council of Miami. It is an honor for us to host today's conversation here at Miami-Dade College with our partners, the Wolfson campus, the Honors College, and also Miami-Dade County International Trade Consortium. Thank you to our partners for making this possible. For those of you who don't know us, the World Affairs Council of Miami strives to serve as South Florida's premier independent and nonpartisan 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to engaging our community on global issues. Our goal is to enhance local access to high-quality information on international affairs. Our mission is to help inform our community. We believe that an informed and engaged public is essential for a thriving democracy and a globally competitive workforce. We also work to advance subnational diplomacy, helping Miami to strengthen its global profile in the international relations sector. Today's event is part of the Mark Samuelian Distinguished Speaker Series program, named in honor of a visionary local leader who was deeply committed to community. This series serves as a platform for thought-provoking, on-the-record dialogues with world leaders, diplomats, and experts, some of whom you'll experience over this next month, as Dr. Gonzalez mentioned, offering unique insights into the forces shaping our world. Let's take a moment to look at why this conversation matters. Today's talk on U.S.-El Salvador relations under the second Trump administration comes at a timely moment. Historically, the U.S. and El Salvador share deep and dynamic ties shaped by geography, commerce, security, and a vibrant Salvadoran American diaspora. Today, as the Trump administration advances its economic policies, as well as its posture toward the Western Hemisphere, El Salvador has emerged as one of Washington's key partners in the region. Our conversation today with Ambassador Mayorga will offer a unique perspective on this bilateral relationship. We will also explore El Salvador's far-reaching public policy reforms, including in relation to investment, economic development, security, and the rule of law, and the country, as well as the country's expanding commercial ties with Florida. This is a rare opportunity to hear directly from El Salvador's top diplomat in Washington at a pivotal moment for both our nations. Whether you are a student, faculty member, or a member of the general Miami broader public and Miami community, we thank you for joining us today and ask you to hold any questions for the audience Q&A at the close of today's program. A quick word about our programs. Now and into the future, the World Affairs Council of Miami is committed to offering these programs cost-free for community learning. Events like this are possible because of the generous support of our members, donors, and partners. As we continue to expand Miami's role in global affairs, we invite you to join us on this mission. On your seats, you'll find a flyer with a QR code, which will allow you to make a donation if you so choose. By doing so, you help us bring more world leaders, policy experts, and similar programs to Miami. Thank you for your consideration. In closing, I'd also like to take a moment to remind everyone that one of the greatest strengths of this series is the chance it offers to build connections between students and professionals. Please take part in these conversations with openness, respect, and good spirit. In a few moments, I'll have the distinct pleasure of serving as today's moderator. But before I do, I'd like to turn the mic over to Gerard Filippo, Executive Director of the Miami-Dade County International Trade Consortium, who will share some of his own words of welcome. Please join me in welcoming Gerard to the podium.
Thank you very much, and good morning. Good morning, Madam Ambassador. I think Aaron stole most of my talking points, so I'm going to go right into it. In terms of trades, trade between El Salvador and the United States is extremely important, but even for us, it is crucial. We were probably one of the few places in the United States that benefited from a trade balance in our favor of over $300 million, of a trade economic activities of more than $2 billion. So right now, we see a lot of opportunities also too for additional economic activity between Miami-Dade County and the Republic of El Salvador, especially in the areas of manufacture, obviously, textile and apparel, but also as important nowadays in IT hubs, because right now there's a booming IT environment, that ecosystem that is developing in Latin America, including El Salvador, and we hope to benefit a lot from it, especially because Miami, as you know, Miami-Dade County is known as the capital of Latin America. Therefore, without further ado, I will call Ms. Acevedo, Sophia, and thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Sofia Acevedo, and I am proud to be the head delegate of the Model United Nations team here at MDC. I want to begin by thanking the World Affairs Council for giving me the chance to speak today and represent an institution that works tirelessly to defend for human rights and education on international law. Today, we start with Aaron Rosen, President and founder of the World Affairs Council of Miami, as we may already know. He, who has a bachelor's degree from UCF in international relations and dual masters in foreign policy and international history from GWU, was a term member, part of the Council on Foreign Relations, and supporter of the 2024 Eisenhower Fellow, researching disinformation and democratic resilience. His impacts entailed working in international technology policy, Russian affairs, and serving as a U.S. foreign specialist for the MUFG Bank. Holding, lastly, a graduate fellowship at the European Parliament with German, Spanish, and intermediate Russian under his belt. Now we move on to Her Excellency, Milena Mayorga, Ambassador from the United States since 2020. Having studied at Tulane University with a degree in communications and theology certificate on Central American integrations, she's grown to be a woman leading advancements on legislation regarding anti-corruption, migration reform, and environmental protection, supporting Salvadorans abroad. Through this all, Her Excellency has been a former member of the Legislative Assembly, focused on foreign affairs and gender equality, all while being married and taking care of 2 wonderful children. It is my greatest pleasure to stand before you today once again and not just introduce these wonderful individuals, but to remind us all of our common passion for positive reform and defense of human liberties. Standing in the heart of it all, Wolfson campus continues to keep it pumping through advocacy and awareness. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sophia, for those very warm words of welcome and that very nice bio. Thank you, Madam Ambassador, for being here, and thank you to all of you for joining us. We'll get right into it with a few different questions. First, zooming out and looking at the broader picture of the U.S.-El Salvadoran relationship, both historically and contemporarily. Madam Ambassador, a few moments ago, we had mentioned that the U.S. and El Salvador
but it's sure, and it's going to help us also attracting investments. So our cabinet has been having very important bilateral meetings at the also defense level. With DHS, Secretary Noem came to El Salvador, and she visited SECOT, which is, I think, like a very important attraction for everybody that wants to get to know the security plan in El Salvador. But we're not only SECOT, which is the Terrorist Confinement Center. We have a very global plan for security, because we're reaching the new generations. We're showing them that's not the way. Before, it used to be something that they desired to become a gang member because they used to have very nice cars, like beautiful girls, power, good shoes, Now we're showing them this is not the way, because in El Salvador, a gang member is a terrorist. The way they used to kill and they used to do the crime, it was horrible. So that's why we catalog them as terrorists. With this administration, security is also very important, so that's why we have a very high-level important meetings, and security, it's something that you cannot do it like loudly and open, because there's a lot of intelligence between that. And what I feel that's, very important is when they called me and they told me, in DHS we want CCOT caps. So I just came back from El Salvador with 10 caps that I'm going to send to DHS. So we're giving a good example, not only to the US, which is one of the most power countries in the world, but to the region, that when you want and you can reach your goals, and security measurements is one of the most important things that families are asking for their governments.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. I really appreciate the detail, and I want to dive into a lot of that a bit deeper in a moment. But before we do, because there's a lot going on in your country that's changing that I think we want to inform the community in the room on, I'd like to take a step back and look at a regional topic that gets a lot of interest here in Miami locally and amongst, let's say, Latin America watchers in the United States, and that concerns the role of China in the region. So the question specifically is, in 2018, China and El Salvador, Taiwan and El Salvador terminated their relationship, and El Salvador adopted a relationship with the People's Republic of China. Since then, the relationship has been growing, and this comes as the US expresses its concerns over Chinese engagement in the region. At the same time, independent analysts in Latin America and in the United States largely acknowledge that traditional Western funding sources have been insufficient for the development of the Latin American region and many other developing regions around the world. The question is, how does the Salvadoran government view China's presence and investments in the region? And how does your government balance its deep partnership and alliance with the United States with also its interest in developing an economic relationship with China?
Okay. President Bukele, when he started his first term, we switched from Taiwan to China in the last government from FMLN, the last government from the left party. 6 months before elections, they switched, and they gave them some cooperation and rice, and the rice was distributed during campaign. But the rice, you eat the rice and that aid is gone. President Bukele started very carefully approaching China, and I think we have a very respectful relationship, and they're cooperating in different fields. They built the library that is in downtown city, and this is a very popular library because it's different. It's a library where you can have different experience since early childhood, and not only with books, they have different areas like Lego and the interactive areas, but you have to read first, 30 minutes to get to use the facility. They have also an auditorium like this, and they do special classes in technology. So this has been like very special aid in cooperation with China, but we're not trading with China. Our partner, most important partner, is the US. And we know that trade with the US is the most important thing. And now with the new tariff, we're in conversations to try to reach a very good tariff for our products. But with China, it's a different relation. China advanced in the region when the United States gave the back to the rest of the countries in Latin America. I can tell you during COVID, it was very hard to buy vaccines. El Salvador bought vaccines from the US, different brands, but the rest of the region, they had to reach to China and Russia. Why? Because United States were not there for the region. So it depends of the US. It's not only that I'm gonna tell you like a parent, don't do this, don't buy this. You have to give an alternative. And that's what I think is missing, not just telling us, don't do 5G with China, let's do 5G with the US or our partners. These are the alternatives. I think it's the approach to the region. Right now, the Trump administration, I think, it's more towards, and you see the officials that are in the Department of State, not only Secretary Rubio, but also the Deputy Secretary also. He knows the region, and they are wanting to reconnect with Latin America, because the vision was in another hemisphere. Now it's in our hemisphere, in our territory. And also, we're partners with the US in the chain, what we can do for the US that is secure for this country, and we're partnering in that area too. Here sometimes is lack of workers, and you have to go abroad, where we're trying to attract all the companies that are in China to come to the hemisphere, and El Salvador is also presenting, the country as an alternative for many industries that they need to relocate in our hemisphere.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. I think that's a very important perspective for those of us here in the United States to hear. So I appreciate you sharing that. I'd like to touch briefly on migration and diaspora. Of course, migration has long defined the human and political ties between our two countries. And remittances by the Salvadoran diaspora have been a vital source for capital from abroad. UCLA's North American Integration and Development Center reports that remittances account for around 20% of El Salvador's GDP. And as a legislator, former legislator, you yourself were dedicated to monitoring the status of this critical population of Salvadorans in the United States. With this in mind, how has the Salvadoran diaspora and your home country been impacted by recent U.S. immigration enforcement trends, including changes or potential changes to temporary protected status for Salvadoran migrants? And how does El Salvador, you touched on this briefly, how does El Salvador view its role in migration management in cooperation with U.S. deportation efforts? Thank you.
Well, we can see that it's not like a peak in deportations. There's been deportations all the time, and with the Biden administration, we cannot see right now that we're receiving like more deportations, but it's something that we respect. We respect the United States. We respect your policies, and we have to adjust and collaborate, especially when it comes in the children non-accompanied. I think this is very important to try to put them safe, in a safe place, and to reconnect with their families. The migration flows, as I mentioned before, it was because El Salvador didn't give them the opportunity to prosper in our country. And right now, I think we call it reverse migration. There's an opportunity to come back to our homeland, to our country. And we have seen these very natural, not because we have a law. We have a law that incentives them to come back with all the households, but it's something that they started like having the opportunity to come back to El Salvador when they saw a good leadership, when they saw that it's a peaceful place, when they saw they can come and do tourism and also invest. Let me tell you that we're gonna reach 1 billion investments from our diaspora abroad, our Salvadorian citizens abroad. So that things that they're reconnecting with our country. They're investing in shopping center, hospitals, hotels, restaurants. Before they used to invest in their hometown, now they're investing in the plan that El Salvador has for economic growth. They're coming 2-3 times per year to visit El Salvador, and I think that's the reverse migration is a perfect example that when you give them the conditions, they'll naturally come back, and El Salvador right now is giving them the conditions. And with the TPS holders, They came because of different environmental problems after earthquakes. And you know, it's sad, but the president that received a lot of aid during the earthquakes stole it. So, you know, we couldn't give them opportunities, and that's why TPS was given to El Salvador. Right now, we still have the TPS. It's until next year that is gonna be end, this protection. But we try to give our people the information and the help, because we help them through the registration. Usually here they have to pay like $400 per paperwork, and through our consulates we help them to register. I've seen that for different countries it's terminated, this status, and you know, we're expecting for the Salvadorian citizens to see if they could have another alternative next year. But that's why we're working in our house, put it beautiful, so they can come and have a choice to prosper in our country. But we have to understand that the policies that U.S. is taking is for the best of their citizens, and to respect, and that's, you know, what we ask for the rest of the countries, to respect our own policies, so we have to respect you too.
Thank you, Ambassador. Talking about making the house beautiful, I think that's quite poignant, and takes us to the next point, which is something you touched on, and specifically the reduction in violent crime. You mentioned it, but I really want to highlight it because it's tremendous and remarkable what's changed in El Salvador. In fact, El Salvador has achieved one of the most dramatic reductions in violent crime worldwide in contemporary history. According to the Revista Harvard Review of Latin America, El Salvador was, of course, once considered the murder capital of the world, and now has the least amount of homicides in the region, fewer even, of course, than here in the United States. Much of this progress, however, the challenge being much of this progress, however, has been made under temporary emergency powers. So the question is, if you're preparing the home to be beautiful for the longer term, for people to come back, how can you articulate, let's say, a longer term plan for balancing the public safety with the constitutional rights and due process and institutional checks that allow this to persevere beyond an emergency power period?
Yes. Okay. So I mentioned that before we used to have a daily 35 murders, and they used to control all the territory, different neighbors. It was really difficult for example, a baseball player or a soccer player to go and do an exchange with another, you know, in another city or another neighborhood, because they were harassed by the gangs. Now El Salvador is, you know, it has a peak in tourism, not only international tourism, but our nationals are going out. They're spending time, you know, in downtown city. In December we had a Christmas village. So they are going out. Before we were prisoners in our country. So when you see that you can live in, you know, freely, peacefully, you can start a business, because before we used to pay rent extortions to the gang members, and we started seeing business sectors that were reporting that they were not paying extortion anymore. So you know, it's so sad, but you get used to it, to live like that. Pay extortion for your life, for extortion to operate a company like Coca-Cola company, to go to these small shops and sell Coca-Cola. They used to pay. Sometimes it was sad. They, you know, they killed these workers, and we used to live like that. Now that we're seeing a different country, people are in our side, are backing President Bukele's policies, and the population gave us the parliament. not one time, for the second time, the supermajority. And that means they agree with all the policies and with the security, because they have to, through the Congress, we have the state of abstention. It's not like President Bukele put it. The Congress openly, in public vote, they have to do it. So we had 2 elections for Congress, and they repeated. They gave him the supermajority. That means they agree. That means families are happy because we're free in our own country.
Thank you. I think one of the most touching videos I've seen on that was an interview with younger Salvadorans that said, like, for the first time, I can skateboard, or I can go to a park, and I can take up activities that I only could watch online, but couldn't actually do because I was scared to leave my house. And I think it's hard to understand from a distance kind of how that transforms the public state and the public space in a country. So thank you for touching on that. Before we pivot to economics and investment, I want to touch on kind of the core of the leadership in El Salvador. Specifically, I want to touch on some of the news that we've seen around the Congress recently approving constitutional reforms to abolish presidential term limits at a time when President Bukele enjoys overwhelming public support. I want to share a couple data points here. According to May 2025 polling by CID Gallup, which is a leading market research company in Latin America, President Bukele enjoys an approval rating of around 85%, among the highest in the world, and some polls even put him at 90%. Without getting into domestic politics, we can't even imagine what that's like here in the United States. Much of that popularity comes from effective policies that you've touched on, specifically ones that have generated tremendous gains in public security. The question, Madam Ambassador, is looking ahead, continuity may offer stability today, but looking ahead, what safeguards can exist to ensure that future leaders who may perhaps be less popular than President Bukele remain accountable in a system with fewer institutional checks and limited opposition? How do you see that?
Okay, you mentioned effectiveness, and I think that's the word that defines the Bukele administration, because it's not only security, it's education. He's given 1 computer per child, given internet in the computer, given new schools, and also the health system. So it's tangible. It's not only that they feel safe, but they are receiving education. And we're working in a new hospital that is almost to be done. And we're working with Google first. Google is starting helping us during COVID, because to switch from regular education to digital education, Google helped us. And then we saw our students studying in cellular phones. That's why I started the plan of giving computers to the students and tablets to lower school, but to prepare our workforce for the future. And I think education through technology, but also learning English, is going to be our strengths to attract investments. Probably in 10 years, we're going to have ready our workforce. And also, that's why I'm telling you that tangible things before, it was corrupt parties that they didn't do their job. And that's why, because why is going to disappear the left and the right parties that are here, like Democrats and Republicans? Because the population, they were sick about receiving anything about the corruption. They were in front of the camera like enemies, but in the back doing deals under the table. And I was in the Congress, you mentioned it, and I saw, I'm coming from the private sector, and willing to be something in the parliament to change my country. That's why I decided to switch from the private sector to the political world, which is not easy when you want to do the correct thing. And that's why I had the same vision with President Bukele. And when I was in Congress, I found out that they didn't want to give the first term of President Bukele, 2 years, he had a tremendous opposition. And they didn't want to give him money for the security forces. Like, how do you pretend you are going to deal with these criminal organizations not having the correct equipment? So we needed to equip our police forces with boots, like the vest, the bulletproof vest, good communications, good cars, and they were blocking that. So they were insane. I was telling, are you stupid? You're against your citizens. And that's why Salvadorian population gave President Bukele the supermajority in Congress. Because to go forward, you need decent politicians that wants to really rebuild the country. I came here to Miami and I saw in Brickell many constructions, but they're tearing apart the buildings. You cannot do that in a country, but it's super difficult to rebuild. You have to start with what? Okay, security, then education, then health. Everything is important when you don't have anything. So it's been challenging, but it's tangible, and effectiveness is the word that defines President Bukele. That's why his popularity.
Thank you, Madam Ambassador. The tremendous gains in security, of course, then allow El Salvador to tell the world that it's open for business, as you're mentioning. Your country has since launched a series of ambitious economic reforms aimed at attracting foreign direct investment, fostering innovation at home, remigration from the Salvadoran diaspora in the United States, and a general modernization of the national economy, as you mentioned. I'd like for you to offer some highlights, some key initiatives that you really wish to inform the public about here in Miami, as well as opportunities for those wishing to engage with El Salvador.
Well, I think it's very important, this kind of forums that we can present our country. El Salvador has removed 32 taxes to, attract companies and also build frameworks in different fields, technology, which is, I think, our main focus, and tourism. Right now, we have a peak in tourism, and the country wasn't ready. So, for example, Siri Marriott Hotel is building 4 hotels and 1 GW hotel. So there's a lot of room to grow in tourism. And the construction sector also grew 18% because the need of new facilities to live, to work. So these 2 sectors, tourism and construction, are the ones that are really improving in our country. I think El Salvador right now, it's a model for the region, and as we achieve the security miracle, we're working in the economic miracle. That's why I think economies like the economy of Florida, it's super important. Here are the hubs of a lot of US companies that see Latin America. Here is the door of Latin America. And trade is always important, more than aid, because aid makes countries like to only depend on the counterpart, but trade, I think, is the way to prosper, and that's why President Bukele is working in giving frameworks that attracts companies. Tech companies can come to El Salvador, and in 10 years, you can develop technology or new products, and you're not going to pay taxes. That's why we're building databases also to have like a technology cluster, aeronautical cluster. 1.8 of our GDP is also in transportation. We have a hub of Avianca, but also Arioman, which is like this huge company that repairs airplanes, is located in El Salvador. So transportation is also, and connectivity is very important for us. El Salvador is ready to do business. We're super pro to do business and to help. When Starlink came to El Salvador, we had to do some framework for satellite internet. And, you know, we were the first ones in the region to do it and to have a Starlink. This is an example. We worked along, very close with the needs of the private sector to remove a lot of bureaucracy, the red tape that doesn't allow to prosper, and immediately, because President Bukele, he comes from the private sector, so he always is asking to expedite everything. He wants everything for tomorrow, and that's why we're trying to remove all the red tape so companies can, start business or grow. And I've seen US companies growing and investing more money in our territory. That's what, because they're, making business and doing it. It's profitable for them.
I think trade, not aid, is a good slogan, very catchy for the embassy to use, and probably effective in Washington, D.C. these days as well. Madam Ambassador, I want to jump on digital economy. In 2021, your country made global headlines as the first country to adopt Bitcoin as a legal tender. There was a bold move that intended to boost financial inclusion and also, of course, attract investment. You yourself have spoken at various cryptocurrency and Bitcoin-related panels, virtual and so on, and often opine on the issues. More recently, however, the government has begun moving away from its Bitcoin policy amid loan negotiations with the IMF, which is a traditional financial institution and less excited about cryptocurrency, let's say, put it diplomatically. For a city and a community like Miami, including with our own crypto population, people here that are very interested in digital finance, digital entrepreneurship, I'm curious what you can share, lessons you can share from this chapter in financial innovation and El Salvador's approach toward balancing, let's say, sovereignty, risk, financial technology, and then also, cooperation with traditional international institutions like the IMF and others.
Yeah, we're a Bitcoin country. This helped us to rebrand El Salvador, because, to becoming a Bitcoin as legal tender in El Salvador, it was like, what? Where's El Salvador? The mayor Suarez just told me, I didn't know about El Salvador until it became Bitcoin legal tender in El Salvador. So it was part of our rebranding, and also like a mecca that all Bitcoiners around the world came to El Salvador to see the adoption in Bitcoin, to go to Bitcoin Beach and see how it was like natural through the tourism. And of course, we were the pioneers, and it's very difficult because there was a lot of opposition from the last administration. With this administration, it's different because we are doing the same, and we were like the pioneers in doing a national reserve. And when we see President Trump is doing the same, and it has like different offices, right now Washington is full of Bitcoin conference, and not only Bitcoin, but like digital assets. So we can see that President Bukele was right, right path. But with the IMF, of course, they were pushing us to remove Bitcoin as legal tender, but sometimes it's like a different speech to the US. US, it's in the right path doing national reserve, and El Salvador is gonna get in default. That was in the New York Times cover.
That's the IMF perspective you're saying?
No, like, all the pressure from the international I think it was the vision of Bitcoin, because first, they don't understand how Bitcoins work. And second, we were the first ones, but now we are seeing the United States doing the same. So we are in the right path. But the IMF with us were really hard, but not with the United States, because the United States, is giving a lot of money to the IMF. So I think that treatment is not fair. It's not the same, but we had to do it. We did the deal with the IMF. We are advancing in the deal, but President Bukele is still buying Bitcoin. Probably Bitcoin is not legal tender anymore, but he's still buying Bitcoin every day. Bitcoin is receiving a lot of business in El Salvador, so it's not the need to have it as legal tender, because we're a Bitcoin country and this is very natural. When we adopted Bitcoin, let me give you an example. President Bukele created the Chivo wallet. This was like 4 years ago. And with the Chivo wallet, it was an incentive after COVID of $30 worth in Bitcoin. And because the international community and the media outlet was like against this move, a lot of hate was given to us, and the population were super scared. They cashed out the money. They didn't use the app to go and pay in the supermarket or the pharmacy or the gas station. They needed the money. So Athena, which was the one that, it's a company that put all the ATMs around El Salvador, had a big trouble because they were like always empty, the ATMs. So we had 4 million citizens downloading the app, and we're talking about inclusion, economic inclusion. That was economic inclusion. But the hate made them like to be scared about the new technology through an app. And so the rhetoric of financial inclusion, how we can, the informal sector, the unbanked people banked, we did it with this app. But it was really difficult to us to tell them, stay with your money or use it through the application. So it's education, what we needed. We were super advanced with these moves, and now we're investing a lot of education. I think our Bitcoin office is doing a super good plan to educate our students so they learn about digital assets and Bitcoin, especially Bitcoin. And we're still attracting a lot of Bitcoiners to El Salvador, but we are really happy that the United States is doing the same. And with the same vision is easier for El Salvador.
Thank you. Madam Ambassador, South Florida likes to consider itself the gateway to Latin America, or as Gerard said, the capital of Latin America, if I'm maybe so bold. But here in Miami, we sometimes look east toward the Caribbean or south toward South America, and we sometimes overlook west toward Central America. I'm curious how El Salvador is leveraging its commercial, cultural, people-to-people ties with Florida in particular. Some sectors may look like trade, tourism, general investment. Anything that you can specifically touch on that is an opportunity for advancement between Florida and El Salvador, or something that you'd like to highlight that maybe some of us here in the room should know about?
Yes, of course, as I mentioned, Florida is always a good place to be, to have a very high-level conversations with different companies. And it's been a very busy week. Yesterday I had a dinner with CC Latam and a lot of CEOs that wanted to have a round table. Tomorrow I will have another one. So I think it's good. So a lot of companies can make the step to go to El Salvador. And this is our goal right now. That's why Florida is the perfect state to reach for big companies that they have their hub here, and they see Latin America. But, you know, the United States is our #1 partner for sure, but we can also trade with the rest of the countries. I think through, you know, our legal frameworks, and Central America also as a region is a good region to make business. And I remember Secretary Lutnick asking us, why you don't do better through Latin America investments? Is that everybody, of course, the United States is a big, big country, and the market is super big. But I think now we have like the alternative to look around and see different markets until we have the certainty about our tariff. Because we're still dealing and making negotiations. Right now, El Salvador has 10%, which is the new 0%. But we're trying to make a better deal, and to reach, of course, always this market and in different sectors. For us, food and beverage is very important, textiles too, pharmaceutical products, and much more. So the United States will be always a good partner, but still the region is very big, and we can do better deals with other countries too.
We're going to open for audience Q&A, and I'll ask anybody with an interest in asking a question to line up behind the microphone here. While you do that, I'm going to ask just one last question in closing. And so if you're interested, just get behind the microphone, and then we'll work our way through the room and call on you. Madam Ambassador, El Salvador has become a frequent topic in international media, as you talked about. From the security model, to political reforms, to Bitcoin, to just being under millennial leadership. What do Salvadorans believe is perhaps least known or most misunderstood about their country's current direction? And what message would you like our audience here to take away from today's conversation?
Well, the Bukele phenomenon, different countries and different citizens, they want to replicate in their countries, but you know, you have to find your own recipe, and of course, we're opening to help. Different governments are coming to El Salvador and have very high-level conversations in security matters, because this is the #1 problem in Latin American countries. Even, you know, countries that you can imagine right now are suffering a lot because of international crime. And El Salvador not only is taking control of our territory, but also seizures of, you know, narcotics. We're like a block in our region. We're blocking that, and you're seeing that right now. President Trump is putting a lot of work in the Caribbean to stop also narcotics coming to the US. So El Salvador is a reliable partner, and we are willing to help and to give our, you know, what we have learned from what we have done in El Salvador, to share to, for example, Ecuador, or to share it to even Argentina. They're really open to work with us. Of course, the US are the one that wanted to learn more about our country and our security measurements to replicate it here in the US. So we're open to help the rest of the region and countries so they can reach also their security, which is super important in El Salvador. And my final message, I think, is we cannot ask you to understand, because it's super difficult when you are in a nice neighborhood or very nice office, and you cannot, you don't know what it is to see a gang member in front of you. The Salvadorian citizens are the ones that we know what we're living right now, and that's why a lot of people that work here in the United States are the ones that are replicating, you know, the good things that are happening in El Salvador, and that's why President Bukele popularity is always high. because it's, to have a gang member in front of you or harass your daughter or your son is something that I cannot explain you. It's very complicated. Before yesterday, I had a round table, and this lady was asking me about to rehabilitate these terrorists. I'm like, somebody that killed 200 times in a very bad way, horrific way. It's very hard to rehabilitate. It's like an Al-Qaeda member to take it outside to schools or clean streets. Is very difficult. We have different regimes for the people that can be rehabilitated. They are working in the fields, they're working in construction. Each day that they work is 2 days that they reduce the time in jail. So we're giving them the alternative to learn something so they can come back to our society. But the most dangerous criminals, terrorists, is different regime, and we don't want them to be back in our society. I think that was one of the things that were scaring the Salvadorian population. That's why they want President Bukele to finish the job.
Thank you. Please introduce yourself and then ask a question. Thank you.
All right, thank you. My name is Mary Shostark. I am a senior disaster management specialist and consultant for the World Bank. And I don't really actually have a question. I just want to say congratulations on I was in El Salvador a few months back, and everyone told me, oh, it's going to be very dangerous and all of this, and I felt so safe as a woman. I walked around the streets at night. I met lovely people. I saw how well the country was being run. I was in the library. People picked me up off the side of the road. I don't recommend hitchhiking, but these families said, hey, this is wonderful. It's safe. It's wonderful. So I think you're doing an amazing job, and I keep it up, and I love the pupusa, so thank you.
Thank you. The World Bank is helping us a lot. Yes, especially in education. We have very good plans. First Lady has a plan from early childhood, and she's taking care of also a lot of plans in education, and World Bank is with us, so thank you very much.
Thank you. Hello, Ambassador. I'm Sophia Curl. I'm an intern at the World Affairs Council, and I'm also student government president here at Wolfson campus. I know that you were in public service while also having a family, raising kids, right? So how did you balance that public service with leading a healthy family life?
Thank you. Yes, I'm a mother, and that's the privilege of my life, of course. And my family, when I switched from my traditional job to the Congress, I had the support of my family, especially my husband, that he was the first one believing in me, that I had the leadership to come to the public world, and the service of the country, because the microphone is, I used to be in the media, so the microphone is super powerful, but you have to be in the right place to make the decisions for your country, and that's what I did. I stood up for my people, and I started backing President Bukele because I thought it was the good thing to do. So they have been with me at my side. I have a 22 son. He's studying Johns Hopkins, and my daughter, she's a 17, and she's right now a senior. And they understand my job, and as a mother, quality of time to be of a very important dates, to talk with them, to support them, because it's I didn't have all the social media in my time to understand that they are receiving a lot of messages. So you need to have a lot of conversation with them, and the values in our house are very important. So yes, my family is an important pillar, and not only my immediate family, my dad, my mom, and I think family is my support. and I couldn't be in this position without their help.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Madam Ambassador, my name is Barry Gordon. I'm the chair of the Film and Television Department here. I worked for the college for about 13 years, and then about 12, 13 years ago, I took retirement, and I moved to El Salvador. El Salvador has been my life since my first visit in 1982. And I have my Chivo wallet account. You talked about education. I remember going to Chivo Wallet at Salvador del Mundo. That was my one. And there were assistants there who educated the people and helped them install the app and to work with the ATMs. So there was a good educational rollout of the program. And then, of course, it changes over time. My question to you is the Régimen d'Exception, you know, it's been renewed many, many times, and the security has held. Do you envision a time, is there a plan where the security will remain what it is, or even improve, without renewing the regimen of exception?
Yes, thank you. Yes, well, the Chivo wallet it was a great tool, even to send remittances with zero cost. But because of the hate, people was scared to using it, but it's an excellent application. Well, this is a special regime, and when you have like a patient with cancer, you know, you have to go with everything, and then slowly, you know, you will have to see the patient, and it takes time to say that, oh, you are healthy right now. So I think we're in that phase that we need to clean the country and still have these tools to combat crime, and also because there's still cells, bad cells, in El Salvador that they're hiding, and we're still reaching them. So to neutralize these structures, they were highly, you know, structured, and not only the ones that you see all tattoo, but the head of that structures, the whole system. So I think it's gonna take some time to get rid of this special regime, but I think right now is what we need, and President Bukele, of course, when he sees that it's the time to remove it, he will do it. I've been in very high-level conversations, and they have a lot of intelligence, and we need to completely clean the country. That's why he's taking right now different measurements in the education field, because we found out that in high schools they were like trying to regroup the gangs in high school, and that's why also in schools it's very important to have order, and it's going to take a little bit longer than we expected, but you know, the majority that we were incarcerated in our country right now, we're free, so I think it's worth it.
Yes, thank you.
Good afternoon, Ambassador. Honored to have you here. My name is Marisu Weller. I am a student at the University of Miami, but I'm originally from Guatemala. So I'm interested in your insights on how other Central American countries can form an alliance with the United States following the model that El Salvador currently has.
Thank you. Yeah, yesterday they were telling me El Salvador is small, so it's easy to do it. I'm like, President Bukele is always telling, start with a region, start with a state. For example, in Mexico, which is super big, start doing it so you can start cleaning the countries. What happening in Guatemala and Honduras and El Salvador, that Central America, you know, we're between the south and the north, and we are the corridor for crime, especially drugs. And that's why El Salvador is doing a great job blocking. The migrants flows also were coming through Central America and not only from the south, but from Africa, from Europe. And I think that's challenging for our region. But when people can give the tools to the president so they can, be very effective in putting measurements, especially in security. I know Guatemala has like a lot of crime structures, very, very high crime structures. And the things that the drug cartels that are running our countries. But President Trump is super hard on in that, and I think with this administration probably we can reach, to block the drug trafficking, and that is going to help a lot of our countries. But each country has their own issues. We're neighbors, but we're not the same. But whenever Guatemala wants us to recommend or to work together in intelligence and in our customs and much more, we're doing it. And of course, in the economic side, we're doing it too. But we're investing a lot in our customs, and we see, sometimes a lot of trouble in the Guatemala or Honduras side, that they go and there are a lot of protests, they stop the customs, and how we're gonna improve in the economic exchange and economic field if we still are with that. So it's challenging, but I think President Trump is doing a great job putting a lot of effort to block the pass of drugs through our region. That's gonna help.
Thank you so much.
Hi, Marco. I run a clean energy acceleration platform based in Switzerland called Enerlink. And firstly, also been to Salvador. Of the 120 odd countries visited, it's an absolutely awesome country. I think it's one of the most, maybe the most compactly awesome country that's out there. I love the fact that you can, go into a volcano and then go surfing on the beach within an hour, and that one lake that's about an hour west of the capital that changes color in the volcano. Just a really cool place. If you haven't been, you have to go.
Guatepeque Lake.
Yeah, that one. And otherwise, my question is just what is currently, what measures are being put in place, if any, of the government of El Salvador pushing access to clean energy for its citizens?
Well, 80% of our energy is renewable energy. And I think this is super good. We have hydro plants in El Salvador. And before we used to buy a lot of energy to Guatemala. Now we can do it by ourselves. And the nuclear energy, I think, is going to be very important plans for the future, for the tech industry. And thank you for highlighting, because El Salvador has a beautiful volcanoes, and that's true. You can be in the volcano, like having a coffee, and then you can go and see the sunset in Sur City. So El Salvador is small, and that makes you, very in a short time to be in different spots. And right now, El Salvador is a super destiny that everybody wants to discover.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Madam Ambassador. My name is Rudy Blanco. I'm an international business attorney. I do a lot of lobbying work also in public affairs. Since we've talked about pretty much the whole region and everything else, what is your stance? How do you feel about Venezuela in particular, and Maria Corina and their mission that they're doing, and the whole stance with the United States pretty much blocking Venezuela's situation and so forth? What is your stand on that, and how do you see the El Salvadorian government doing it? By the way, it's a beautiful country. Y las mejores pupusas are from El Salvador. So,
Thank you.
No, you're welcome.
Well, we don't have diplomatic relations with Venezuela.
Yeah, that's what I thought. That's what I thought.
And I think President Bukele is super clear in that, and we don't recognize Maduro as the president of Venezuela because he stole the election.
Absolutely.
So we stand with the Venezuelan people, And we hope that pretty soon they can have back their country.
Amen.
Because Venezuela is a very rich country. Not only they have like a lot of like oil reserves, but they have a lot of minerals, and also the shore is like Caribbean. They have a lot of, they are really blessed, and being a country that has a lot of richness, it's in poverty. So you can see that this type of regimes, it doesn't work for the people. But we hope, they can finally reach the liberty. And we are always telling the Venezuelan citizens that we're with them. And, we hope that they can have pretty soon their back Venezuela.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
We have time for one last question, so perfect.
Thank you. Madam Ambassador, good afternoon. My name is Aaron Carger. I'm a local attorney. In fact, I live just a couple of blocks away from here. And one of the really unique aspects of living in Miami is that it's an international hub to Latam. And so I had wanted to go to El Salvador for so long, but due to safety reasons, I had not. And since the advent of Bukele's administration just a few months back, I did go. And I'm a gringo from Minnesota, but I speak Spanish. And so I was on the ground, in shops, in bars, in restaurants, speaking to the locals, and I want to say congratulations for the liberation of your country. Everyone I spoke to had direct relatives, brothers, sisters, mothers, fathers that were victims of murder, assault, what have you, and they really praised God for Bukele's administration. I mean, it was literally a liberation of millions is the way they described it, not my words. So I also want to say that I hope that other Latin American countries, I know that there's the prospect of modeling going on to follow suit from El Salvador, so I hope that takes place. But I just want to say congratulations to you and on the administration and to the people of El Salvador.
Thank you very much, and thank you for going to the ground and see the changes in El Salvador. I'm inviting you to come to El Salvador. From Miami, it's only 2.5 hours, direct flight. And you'll see the changes, and you can be part of the economic miracle, because tourism is a very important pillar for us. So thank you, and thank you for visiting El Salvador and becoming also an ambassador of what's going on in El Salvador.
And one last thing, it was a particularly interesting pilot. I'm a former criminal prosecutor here in Dade County, and so I actually went with a couple of colleagues who were also former prosecutors just because this pilot, if you will, was so interesting. And so I want to say felicidades and congratulations on it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for sharing those personal remarks. Very interesting. And thank you, all of you. Madam Ambassador, thank you. A round of applause for the ambassador. Thank you all for joining. We're going to break now. We'll have maybe a few moments if you want to follow up with the ambassador privately on her way out. And then we'll also take some group pictures together as well. So thank you very much, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you for this invitation. God bless you.